Where's Abby?
Okay, hello and welcome to The Last of Us HBO Spoilercast. And today we're going to be talking about episode 5, aptly titled Feel Hair Love. So before we begin, the usual disclaimers. This episode will be full of spoilers from beginning to end. So if you've not seen episode 5 of season 2 of The Last of Us yet, you may want to leave. Watch that first and then come back to the discussion. It's not only safer that way, but it'll probably make more sense that way as well. Once we get into discussion of things that have not happened yet in the show that have happened in the game, we will give a separate spoiler warning for that, because I think there'll be some things to talk around about that as well. But we're going to start off with the show first and kind of go from there. So this week, I am joined once again by my lovely wife Dee and also by Brooke. So thank you again for joining us. Should we start off with overall impressions of the episode, what we thought, and then dive into specifics? So who wants to go first?
I really liked this episode. Anytime it's like follows gameplay stuff, like not even story stuff, just like things that remind me of playing the game, I'm like really happy. And I feel like there's a lot of that in there. That's why I think it was episode 4 or 5 in season 1. Some of the Kansas City stuff, which is Pittsburgh in the game, but same difference, I've really enjoyed because of that. So I think that's what made me happy about this episode.
I was just happy to see my Jessie in there.
Mhm.
I was like, I literally pulled Phil's arm. Was like, I thought it was really good, and I noticed as well the gameplay mechanic thing, and like, where's the wrench she's going to pick up? There it is, and it was really very cool. It's got enough, I think, for the game players, enough for those who've never seen the game, and enough for those who are a hybrid of the two, like me. Great. Yeah, obviously I've got my hair in a May She Guide Us Scars type hairstyle today. It was really good episode.
Yeah, I really liked it overall. I think in terms of covering all of day 2, they did a good job in terms of what they kept in versus what they cut out, making sure they still hit the main beats. And I think my main kind of big praise for the episode in terms of like big good things would be the horror in both the Stalker factory that they did, and also the Seraphites in the forest, and the way that looked. That was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I also think, again, like the fact it's different to the way it's done in the game, like the kind of how a character arc goes. But because obviously with game Ellie, we see like more of a kind of descent into obsession, whereas with Bella's Ellie, it's more of a kind of mask on, mask off thing. But I think that difference, the way she portrays that difference, and like the way she portrays like those moments where the mask falls, like immediately after singing the first lines of like "If I Ever Was to Lose You," or once she sees the hospital. And then there's a moment of, should I go back for Dina? No, Nora's there. And like again, that kind of blank face and everything. And then obviously in that final scene as well. That was really well done. I think the only thing I can imagine a lot of people will bring this up when talking about it. This was the shortest episode that we've had of the season so far. This one clocked in around 40 minutes compared to like 50 of the usual. So again, I don't think the things that they did were necessarily rushed in and of themselves, but I think I can see why people will think that, particularly because there was quite a lot crammed in all at once. And I think if they'd had it that longer episode, the same as the others, I don't think that would have done it a disservice. Like, I think having more time to like kind of sit with what was already really well done horror in terms of the stalkers and in terms of the forest in particular.
I disagree. I think it would have done it a disservice. I think we've talked on this spoiler cast a lot since episode 1 about how things have become realistic. We've talked about how the gameplay mechanics that we see in the game are just survival mechanics in the actual environment. And I think had it not gone hectic, mad, stalkers, forest, but it would have done a disservice to the idea of just things happening all at once, about it being overwhelming, because they got overwhelmed in Stalker Factory. It was when they turned round with the lights and they were all there. Right.
Yeah.
Had that taken longer, what
I
would they have
absolutely loved
added?
that shot when they like realized there were more of them.
What
Oh
could
my
they
god,
have
it's so
added
scary.
to make it longer that wouldn't have ruined that whole absolutely chaotic, overwhelming feeling of it?
I think it was more, and again, I get what you're saying, like, and I see why, but I think the transition between what were essentially 3 areas between like running away from the stalkers, running away from the WLF, and then bumping into the sky, it kind of, I don't know, it was probably realistically quick, as you say, but it did still feel quick, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like in terms of just
I
kind
feel
of,
like I see both sides, because I think it feels more realistic, because like realistically you go into a warehouse with like 12 stalkers, you're not making it out of there, so like that urgency was there. But I guess like playing the game so many times, it feels like Ellie has such this long journey to get to the hospital, and she keeps seeing it and she's like, man, I wish we would have been closer by now, or I wish I would have gotten closer. So maybe it's just from playing the game that I feel like they got from the theater to this warehouse really quickly. Although they did explain they explained that part, but then I feel like they got to the park really quickly, because the park was just happened to be next door to the thing, which I guess it's like explained why they don't patrol there, because the WLF probably knows that that warehouse is full of infected and they don't want to bother with it. And then they know that the park is full of seraphites and they don't want to bother with that either. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like, and then Ellie, it seems like Ellie gets to the hospital so fast. And I'm like, I've died going to the hospital so many times playing this game. That feels like that was really quick. I made the joke when we were watching it. I was like, oh, Ellie studied some speedrun strats to get into the hospital.
yeah, I was gonna say that it kind of vindicated, like, right, my no kill speed runs for this Scar Forest is absolutely canon. So,
yeah,
like, just because I think that kind of, she lost them and then it was like immediate. But again, I do understand why. I'm not kind of picking it apart to say, oh, the entire episode falls apart on that. I think it just kind of, the fact that happened so quick, and then it is like 10 minutes shorter, the episode probably is something that kind of worth highlighting and discussing kind of why and whether it works or not.
It didn't feel 10 minutes shorter to me, but then I had only just woken up.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it did take me by surprise when we were already there. I think on the second watch and kind of looking at the time and going, oh, we're already here. Like, that's like kind of second watch, it kind of clicked in. That was when it kind of realized. But yeah, if we go back to the beginning of the episode, we start with obviously Ellie and Dina in the theater before everything goes off, and we get a good little bit of exposition, well, about the how they're tracking the WLF movements, and it kind of sets up why this, they're kind of essentially establishing, the Scars are primitivists of in that sense. But I think I'm going back to kind of when we had the watch party in my Discord, and a few people were commenting like that whole section from like the beginning of the episode up till they go into like until it goes to nightfall. Like, Dina's doing all the talking the entire way. I've got thoughts on it myself, but I want to know what you guys think. Dina's doing most of the talking and kind of leading the whole thing. And it's like, so what's your thoughts on the kind of the dynamic that they've got there?
I think Dina had to, because it's something she doesn't talk about, and she had to be ahead of Ellie at that point when she's telling her about what happened with her family, with her mum and her sister. That's the sort of thing where if you turn around and looked at her and saw any pity or anything like empathy or love even in that face, you would just lose it. And she hasn't got time to lose it. She just wants to make sure Ellie knows that she's not soft. She has done stuff. And that's why she's leading the way through it. If she turned around and Ellie was sort of looking like at her, or even, oh, poor Dina, let me hug you, she wouldn't have been able to carry on. She took an arrow in the knee.
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't really bother me because Dina was still kind of doing what she does in the game. It's just she comes with Ellie this time, which like makes her Ellie leaving to go to the hospital have more of an impact of like, oh, like Ellie means business now. Like she's suddenly lying to her friends about what she has been lying to them to some extent the whole time about how she really is feeling. Because Dina is the one that like she spends all night in the game like tracking their movements so she knows where to send Ellie the next day, or and she plans to go with Ellie, but then like it's just a gameplay like reason that they it's like more of a challenge for you as a player to only play with one. Like you don't have a companion. I don't know. I feel like Ellie, they've displayed throughout the season how reckless she is, and Dina is the level-headed one, and I don't think that's like no, I don't think that's that different from how it goes in the game. She has this like recklessness of I can't die to at least to these infected. So I don't know. Like I can understand, I guess, that people are finding Ellie more passive, but that's because you're not like on the controller.
Yeah.
In this instance.
But it was definitely passive until she got to Nora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I read it, like in terms of like how it was being played, again, I'm talking about the mask on, mask off moments. And we know kind of we see bits of that from like the guitar scene, and Ellie's kind of got that obsession underneath, and she's like kind of playing all normal. In terms of Dina's behavior, like the way I kind of read it in terms of how she's doing it isn't like she gives this kind of big, quite hard speech about, you know, it doesn't matter if if my family had done something to them first, you shouldn't have to see that. That shouldn't happen. That's not because she herself believes in like, you know, the revenge quest or anything like that. That's because she is doing the ride or die thing with Ellie. She's like tying herself to Ellie because she doesn't want to get left behind, cares about it, and B, probably also thinks that's the way she can protect her from herself if she recognizes that. Like, so this is kind of like she's trying to say like she sympathizes and stuff, whereas from Ellie's point of view, it's like she's obviously got that like moment of clarity still where she's realizing Dina's pregnant. She shouldn't be going on this thing with me. This is ridiculous. But also at the same time, like she's there's probably also a part of her that's like, if I send her back and put her safe, I can go and do whatever I need to do and not have to worry about that, which is obviously what takes over when she comes in later. So I think, yeah, I've seen a lot of discourse of people already kind of saying it looks like Dina's more revenge oriented than Ellie, and I kind of take it that like they're both putting on fronts.
Yeah, they kind of talk about that. I listened to the podcast, the HBO podcast, when I was at the gym today, and they kind of talked exactly about that Dina sympathizing with Ellie, saying, you know, if the guy who killed my family like would have gotten away, I would have done whatever to get him, but it's all a hypothetical for her.
Yeah.
Like because it didn't happen, and I think it's easy to say what you would have done if something happened versus Ellie's reality of like, this is where I am right now. And I didn't even think about kind of the mask on, mask off. I guess I had been thinking about it, but like putting that like description to it makes me like this version of Ellie's character so much, because in the game it is kind of more like a slow descent, but we really see, I feel like you have to view the games, I feel like you can view more as like individual stories, whereas the show is more of a continuation, because they had both stories to adapt ahead of time. They could put those like through lines in season 1. So if you look at Ellie's character as a whole, she's always lied to people. She's always been like had that like mask on, mask off, been a little manipulative. So even when she's has the realization that Dina shouldn't be here, she doesn't say, "Let's just forget about this, we'll go home." She's like, "You can't be here because of your condition. I will make sure that you get home." Like the language of it is so specific. She's not saying we will both go home and we will forget about this whole thing. It's like, no, you shouldn't be here, but I still need to be here, but I still want to keep you safe. So I don't know, like that like something clicks for me there with Ellie's character. It's being more like she hides her real feelings and who she really is until she's alone.
Well, she's always done that, hasn't she? Even like in
Mm.
season 1, she's always been a bit of a cocky little shit. To be honest, Ellie, the cocky little shit. Even when we first see her, she's mouthing off. She's absolutely mouthing off. But it's not too much further on when we hear where she's telling Joel, "I would only be more scared. Everybody has left me. You can't leave me too." So we know that there are the two sides, at least two sides to Ellie: the cocky little mouthy shit, and the really vulnerable young woman. And I think in that moment we saw kind of both of them there, because it's like Dina's like, "We can go home or we can carry on." And Ellie's like, "Okay, I can make sure you get home." She's got no intention of going back at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. And that's like the little cocky shit coming back out, like, "I can't get bitten." That doesn't mean she can't get shot in the head. Doesn't mean she can't have anything like limbs off. But because she's immune, she's got that quite cocky barrier to her, I think. And she can use that as a way of manipulating Dina into staying where she is, because like, "Oh, which one of us is the immune one? Me. I'll go, you stay." So yeah, she is. Yeah, I see what you mean about her being a little bit manipulative. She's headstrong, very focused, and cocky little shit. Yeah, like when she said, "I can get bit a lot." Yeah.
Yeah, and that I feel like that's the first time we really see her take charge of like the situation, because she's like, "I can get bit, you can't. You go there.
Yeah.
I'll distract them." And Dina like is automatically like, "Okay, like let's go." So I think that was the first time that like less passive personality was able to show through.
Yeah. I think I also like, I've said it before, but I think it was in this episode again, the fact that they're kind of leaning into more. We knew this anyway, like we see it in whatever version of the story, but the fact that them going to Seattle and pursuing this quest is not well thought out at all. Even with Dina's planning, it's still a terrible idea, poorly thought out, and it's completely reckless. And I think the other thing that I like that's a change, but I'd say it's a good change in terms of character attitudes. When we meet Jesse and when kind of he's interacting with Ellie, it's not like in the game when he's kind of reacting like, you know, I would have. He says at one point, "I would have come with you." I looked up to Joel. Now he's pissed off at them. He's like, you know, don't pretend like we're on good terms and be talking to me like I want to hear from you. Just shut up. You've put us in this situation. We've had to come after you to rescue you, and like, you know, this far from you idiot. Like, what have you done, scolding her? Because essentially it is like him and Tommy have been dragged out because they've gone and done this, and it's a completely insane thing to do, especially once they see the situation on the ground and like the war and the size of the WWF and everything else. But even before that,
yeah, Yeah, this goes to, I think, what we said about Jesse before, isn't it? That since that he is taking over, he is stepping up his game, and he does that effortlessly, which I think is lovely. It's not like he's like, oh, is it all right if I tell him off? He's just accepted that role, and I like seeing Jesse comfortable in his role and in his skin.
Mhm.
I like that. Where he's like, no, shut up.
They're giving him, I feel like, more conviction in this version of him. And I think showing his leadership in Jackson more helps that too. And I just thinking about where Ellie ends up and how the changes that I can talk about later when we get to like spoilers section, but like how they've changed up some of the WLF characters and things and what Ellie does or doesn't do, or what she does in the game that we don't see in the show because of like creative decisions or whatever that they've made. I think showing the cost that she has caused, not only like herself but also the people that are around her that she loves more. Like I don't feel like that wasn't as strong of a point that they made in the game that I think they're aiming for in the show.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, that does.
For Ellie specifically, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with you on that.
Yeah. So again, I like I say, I like the dynamic. The other thing I liked as well, it's really subtle, like it's done like in the moment, but once like kind of the gunshots ring out and they're rescued in that like moment where like it looks like they're about to like meet their end, and then all Ellie sees as he's kind of looking up, everything's a little bit blurry, and this guy carrying a gun wearing like plaid flannel shirts and stuff, it's clearly like the seeing Joel kind of moment, which is kind of two things. So one, it's like almost like a callback to like the fake out that they did in the trailer. When they first
I laughed
met
about
Jesse,
that. Yeah.
and it turned out for anyone who doesn't know, there was a trailer which had Joel in it, like kind of meeting Ellie in Seattle and saying like, "Do you think I'd let you do this on your own?" And it turned out to be Jesse in the actual game. It was basically to throw people off the scent of Joel being dead. But also, there's different points they do in the game where when someone is like kind of trying to get through to Ellie and she's thinking of like Joel, like there's one particular point where Tommy's talking and they put Troy Baker's voice as Joel over it, saying the same line, and you hear Joel's voice first. And it kind of reminded me of that, the way they did that. Like again, even though it was only that like snap, like split second moments, it was just like, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, which is, I wonder if they'll put that in the show too, because they can explore more of, I think we've talked about a lot before, they can explore more of like Ellie's like PTSD kind of from her trauma in the show more than they can in the game. But it is similar, I guess, because when Jesse finds her, or she finds Jesse in the show, he like covers her mouth and she can't see who it is at first. And I always got the sense that like Ellie for a split second is like, oh, it's Joel, because Joel always has my back. That's who it is. And then remembering that he's gone and it's Jesse, it's like, oh. So yeah, it's similar, I think. But I liked that a lot too.
Yeah. And that's of course like what he says, the fact that he says, "You think I'd let you do this on your own?" is complete. Again, what we just mentioned before about it. That's not what Jesse's there for. At this time, he's like, I was like, he's like, "I'm not letting you do this." He explicitly says when she's like, we get out of here and we go back, and he's like, "We got to go to the hospital." I'm like, "No, we're going home. This is over. This is the end of it." And again, that's obviously what they set up as the other kind of background reason to push Ellie to like choose at that moment once she gets out the forest to go,
You're
if
not
I
my
go
real
back.
dad.
Well, yeah, but that's like, you know, if I go back, we're going back, so I need to do this now or never.
Yeah, but it's like the whole the way she could see Joel and what have you, that just rang so true for me. After, I mean, how long is this? It's not only a few months after Joel has died, isn't it? It's only about 3-4 months.
I
And
think the 3 months when they left.
when
I
they
don't know
left,
how long
yeah,
they took to get
it was
there.
like when I lost my dad, I still, and this was nearly 2 years ago, I still think I see him in Pontypridd or when I go to Cardiff. Still think I see him, and I know that he's in a hole in Tobago, but it is, you do see them everywhere.
Mhm.
So in this high stress situation, that's going to be even more heightened. That she would, not in a like a, oh, I feel he was with me, but a literal being there. So I loved that. I thought it was really, what's the word? Not clever. It was honest. It was true.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see Joel save Ellie in a similar capacity next episode with these flashbacks to kind of like
Yeah. Oh,
remind the audience like, oh, Ellie thought that Jesse was Joel for a second, because I
Yeah.
think my first watch, I think I was just really excited to see Jesse. I was like, yeah, it's Jesse, because I knew it was Jesse.
Yeah.
So I didn't like pick up on the fact that she was looking at the silhouette and was like, oh, that's Joel, until I watched it again and I was like, oh yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Now I can be excited, less excited about seeing Jesse again.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm sure I'm not the only one that had those same thoughts. So if they do something similar, and they do something like that in the game, where Joel saves Ellie like that, so we'll see.
Yeah. I thought as well, like, just kind of talking on like kind of how they've done the dialogue in this, and we mentioned in previous episodes talking about how they kind of talk too much sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple of scenes where it felt like they talked too much. Probably, again, I don't want to pick too much on Dina, but like all the scenes where they're talking too much definitely felt like when Dina was talking too much in the episode.
This
Mhm.
anti-Dina rhetoric. Where's it come from? Honestly.
Yeah, not all of it. Like, but there's certain things where she like explained things a bit like too much. There was just a couple of instances where it was like probably like I think explaining the situation when they were in this office when there was like no, in the infected, like there's not going to be a hole because this, and kind of a little bit too much.
Yeah,
Well,
I was like, y'all, there's infected around. Why? Shut the fuck up. A little bit. Like, be quiet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you.
Which is interesting contrast to, there were 2 points where they did the opposite, where they did the dialogue good and they like didn't stray too far. Like they like when Jesse says he found the map in the theater, Ellie's like immediately like, well, how'd you find the theater? Which is a good question. And I hope we find out how, because that's definitely something we need to know.
Yeah.
But in that situation, if that was the right call, right and wise, to have a go, shut the fuck up. I don't want to
Yeah.
talk to you right now. So like having that there, and equally when like the woman in the hospital goes to kind of like my mission in the hospital, and the other woman's like, I gave you your orders, I
Yeah.
know what you're there for, and it kind of like they don't go into the exposition. So I think that's, they can do that, right? They can do it where they don't have the unnecessary explainer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sometimes that there's still like, it still like almost feels like, oh, but I don't know whether the audience will definitely know this, so we just have to like whack
I
them on the
feel
head
like
with it.
we were getting, a little, I do feel a little bit in this episode, not enough to take me out of it or like not like it, but I feel like they were giving us too much exposition in some aspects and then not enough in others. Maybe I'm just being like nitpicky, but I would have loved to see, I guess I didn't think about this until I watched it again and then listened to the podcast and then remembered the scene from the game with Nora, that at that moment, like Ellie really weaponizes. I mean, Ellie knows about the spores, so it's a little different. So she's, and this is probably, as I'm talking, this is probably why they didn't do it this way. Like, she weaponizes her immunity by like pushing her and Nora down into the spores.
Mm.
Whereas we see in the beginning of the episode that I guess they're keeping it hush hush about what's actually in the basement, and they're just sealing it all off. And that's why Nora doesn't know about it. But I feel like if I assume that they would be like, hey, we sealed all of these areas off. Don't go there under any circumstances. Why would Nora like willingly go? I don't know. That's, I think, and it is nothing to do with the writing of the episode and just the whole concept of spores
Mm.
and how they chose to introduce them. They had to do it differently. I'm just like, why would Nora just go in there? Like, that's a
Yeah.
death sentence, whereas Ellie was the one who like pushed her in there in the game, which made more sense that like it wasn't a choice that Nora made.
I think on
I don't
that
know.
she kind of like, she doesn't know about the spores, but the points about like weaponizing her immunity, she kind of does once she like
Yeah.
reunites with Nora,
Yeah.
because like Nora's like, just like, you stupid bitch, you've infected us both. And there's like, you know, almost evil look on her face when she says like, have I? It's like,
Yeah. Well, then,
Yeah.
okay, that is my question then. Did Nora know that there were spores there? And why did she willingly go into that area if she, I don't know.
I don't think she
That,
had much of a choice. She was being
yeah.
hounded. So, and they, I think at the beginning, didn't they say like they weren't going to tell anybody, they were just going to board it up
yeah.
and that's it. But she
Is that-
manages to get in there because that's where.
Did you
Ellie
guys think that
tried
was
to go
like
into.
a flash? Like, I'm taking that as like, that was like a couple of years before the
Yeah,
events
no,
with
I didn't
Nora.
take
Like,
that as like that had happened just that
Just no, me either.
now.
yeah,
Well, because when we see her son down there, it looks like he had been there for a
For a
while.
while.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Like, I just like, because yeah, it was just like, yeah, that's definitely a flashback,
Yeah. So
like,
I guess
kind of thing.
my,
We don't know exactly how long, but at some point in
I
the
loved
past.
the way when they breathed though, and the spores were coming out of their mouths. Thought that was wicked. That was
it was
so
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Like really cool.
Yeah.
I like the exposition at the start though, like when they like talk about it. I know we're jumping around it because there's
We are.
thoughts everywhere. But yeah, that conversation kind of, it wasn't quite on the same level as the first conversation on the talk show at the start of episode 1 of season 1, but it had the same kind of vibe in terms of, it was
Yeah.
just like, there was no action going on, just two people talking, but it like oozed threat. It's like, there's a thing here that's like,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I am so used to the other game that Phil loves loads being anything to do with Resident Evil that as soon as I hear the word Leon, my head goes, Leon, help! Every bloody time.
Well,
it
I
was-
wonder if that's an Easter egg, the name
Yeah.
too, because there is, and without, no, I don't want to, we won't spoil anything, but there are other like Resident Evil influences
Yeah.
on things in this game. So
yeah, I didn't get a chance to get a good look at his hairstyle, so I don't know whether he's like modeled off Leon.
It's long floppy fringe.
yeah, no, that I think my favorite part of this show has been these like out of time, out of context cold opens that
Yeah.
they give, like the way that is how I want my exposition, is something that you see in the beginning that obviously is going to come back later in the episode, but it's not like that's the kind of exposition where they're like telling you, not showing you, that I enjoy. When the characters in the show, like in the moment, are like telling and not showing, that's where it kind of like takes me out of it a little bit.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and that was my
Agreed.
just to show that I'm not entirely picking on Dina. The other one that like kind of stuck out to me in what was otherwise like a really brilliantly done scene, like everything from like Ellie and Nora from the
Mhm.
beginning, where it was like line for line
Yeah.
done like the way the game, and then the chase, which was practically the chase down, you know, that you do in the game, and there was like the same hospital setting with the soldiers on the
Mhm.
balcony shooting, all of that, and then the final ending of it, like, and the cut to black after the third pipe hit. Fantastic. No notes, except for the fact that once again they took the time out to like tell you exactly to the detail why Abby killed Joel. Like, it was her
Yeah.
dad, and it's like,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I
'cause
feel like
I think it was just like so they could get Ellie to go, I know,
yeah, but I think
literally.
I feel like they could have done that without having to rehash what happened. Like, oh, like
Agreed.
he killed everyone in that hospital. Like Ellie, Nora could have just said, like, don't you know what he did?
yeah. I mean, I
Or
think
Yeah.
could have
that was the
kept it at
exact
that.
line in the game. It
Yeah.
was like, think about all the people he killed, or something like that.
Yeah. And then at that point, Ellie's like, yeah, I know, and I don't care. Like, I don't think we needed all of the extra, hey, remember this? This is what happened. This is what Joel did.
Yeah,
Honestly, I am so with you on this. I said from like week one that it was too much exposition, and this is exactly what the sort of thing I
Yeah.
was talking
Especially we're
about.
gonna find out exactly how Ellie knows next
Yeah,
episode. Like, I don't think that they
right?
needed to give it to us that hard.
yeah.
No,
The other thing as well is, like, I mean, I like the fact that she basically said, I know and I don't care. Like that
Mhm.
part, and again, like the kind of coldness. I do like the way all that was done. It's specifically the, like, not only because it's again, just to remind you, in case you forgot what Abby said in her whole monologue in episode 2, it's also a change because there's never any confirmation at any point in the entirety of Last of Us Part 2, the game, that Ellie knows the specifics of why Abby killed Joel rather than
Mhm.
any other Firefly. Because she doesn't know it's her dad. She
Right.
knows that Joel saved her and killed a whole bunch of people to do it. That's the entirety of her knowledge. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the context of that changes the impact of anything that comes later. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's something about Ellie, like, knowing what happened, but not exactly knowing Abby's motive versus knowing precisely because it's spelled out in, like,
Yeah.
practically in neon lights.
I guess in the show it'll show that, like, just because Ellie has all the information, it's not going to change her mind or her choices. But I don't think it was really necessary. And it kind of I don't know, I love the mystery of, like, when you're playing the game, you don't know who Abby is, you don't know who these people are, you don't know why they're there. And Ellie, up until this point, is still kind of in the dark about who these people are, why they're there, why did they come in and kill Joel.
Mm.
So now that she has all the I don't know, I just feel like it doesn't add enough to the story or to Ellie's character that I needed to see that.
It also kind of removes Nora's moral high ground that she's, like, given herself, like, because she's got the whole, like, I'm dying and you're going to try and torture me to get where my friend is. I'm not giving up my friend, and think about all the people that Joel killed, which kind of is completely undercut when she's, like, said, he was the only one who could have made a cure out of you, and then you're instantly, yeah, by killing her. That's just why Joel did, to save her life. And it's
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
moral high ground lost entirely in that moment. So yeah, it was a strange choice.
Turns out it was all for nothing.
The rest of that scene, though, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God. I was like, run, Ellie, run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way they did the final blow, so, like, it was with a pipe, the same, like, weapon in the game.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the parallel between that and Abby killing Joel before. I don't know, I might have been asleep
Yeah.
or something, but the fact that it was even shaped like a golf club.
And she hit Nora's leg multiple times.
Mhm.
Just how Abby does Joel. So I did like that addition, because I don't really ever think I've consciously picked up on the fact that Ellie doing that to Nora is a mirror of Abby,
Mm.
what Abby did to Joel.
Yeah,
I'm glad it
It's-
wasn't just me then.
Yeah.
it's a good way to, like, make the audience uncomfortable as well, because in the game, like, because you're playing as Ellie, it switches entirely, so you're looking at Ellie while you
Mhm.
press the square button to, like, do the swings. You have to do it, you have to be complicit in it, and you also can't see what's happening. Like, it's just kind of just the rage on Ellie's face. Obviously that wouldn't work for a TV setting, so, like, the way they did it, and kind of, like, Nora's already kind of punched over, effectively facing death, and then, like, the pain, and again the parallel with Joel is, like, going to be, like, even more obvious, I think, because you see in both of them.
Yeah.
And then it does obviously like cut to black at that third stroke, which is also game accurate, but is also like kind of like that. You don't know what happens next. And it just, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it does a really good, like, kind of in a different medium, presenting the same kind of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why that reminded me suddenly of the change of what is on the like billboard outside of the theater. They changed it to be like Sick Habit, which is like the fake band from part 2. In the
Hmm.
game, it's Cassandra, which is a play or like a Greek tragedy. And I saw this girl on TikTok, like I think when season 1 came out or something, talking about how it's so symbolic because Cassandra is a play where Cassandra is a character who is like all knowing and knows that all of these bad things are going to happen and that people are going to make all these choices and is trying to warn you not like these characters not to do those things,
But
and they do them anyway,
because no one believes her. That's her curse.
and no
That
one
she
believes
can
her,
say what she wants. No
which
one will believe her.
being like and I feel like, and she made this girl in the video made this comparison that like the player is Cassandra in the game, where we have to go to continue the story, we have to make all these terrible choices even though we know that it's not good. And
Yeah.
so I just wonder why they changed that, because I love how like
Yeah, because it plays heavily on
connected that
like
is.
I mean, we won't get to see that till next season, I guess, but there's a huge dose of dramatic irony in the game, which
Bless you.
I could feel that coming a mile off, and then it was just like, no, I can't. I need to stop mid sentence. But yeah, like, but they also obviously we talked about when they changed the moose symbolism as well. Like that's not,
Yeah.
or at least it's not there so far. So whether again, is there a reason for this, or is it just purely aesthetic?
Yeah, I guess that's my question, is it's not that might not be answered right away, but I'm just like, I don't know. Those are two things that were so cool or like important to me personally because I love a good metaphor.
Mm,
Hmm.
But
same. And I love a good Greek tragedy metaphor.
yeah.
Like,
And I mean the story is it's a tragedy,
mm,
so that all lines up.
yep.
But
Yeah. Speaking of tragedies and changes, though, it's again, it's a completely minor thing, but the dog was not called Bear. The dog was called Bonnie. It
uh-huh.
was like, yeah, I don't. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, I suppose, but also like justice for Bear.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I know so many people, have known all through my life, so many people with dogs called Bear. What is it about dogs that makes people want to call them Bear? I've known at least 6 people who have had dogs and called them Bear. So yeah, justice for Bonnie.
Yeah, I think they probably like I don't think the dogs are going to play as prevalent of a role in
Yeah.
showing Ellie's violence as they do in the game, because I feel like that would create quite an outrage for TV audiences.
As
Yeah,
many
Is kind of what I
children and people as you like, but you leave the dogs alone.
yeah.
I mean that part's fair. I'm not advocating for like the dogs
Yeah.
to be killed on screen or anything like
Yeah.
that. Just for them to have the same, it feels like, yeah, like
No,
unless
I agree
Bear
there.
is a different character we'll see at some point or
Maybe.
whatever, but it's still like, but why? But
Hmm.
why?
That's the
Yeah.
question. Is why. Um I thought the Seraphite forest the park was like done beautifully.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of the forest and the hospital, there's things I want to talk about in terms of what we might see in future as well.
Yeah.
But I think, um, yeah, the way they like kind of did that, like in terms of the Seraphites and like that scene and the hanging and drawing, um, the fact that they changed like the kind of the way that they say those exact same sentences to being a chant that everyone says in unison makes it so much creepier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like that was just like, again, I like that they're leaning into the horror of these aspects, because like these scenes, like there's a lot of horror in them, like from the stalkers to that. And I think like making it like purely action or whatever else, rather than just kind of leaning into like, no, this is horrifying, this is somewhere you don't want to be in any circumstances.
When Phil was playing it, when was very first playing the game, if we can cast our minds that far back, the Seraph, I loved watching him play it. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I don't have a problem with horror generally. I like it. I don't have a problem with dark stuff. I write it. But the Seraphites triggered my own PTSD. That's how sinister they were. It wasn't fun. I can laugh about it now because I'm not in a flashback, but the Seraphites, I think, out of everyone are the scariest. I think religious cults for me are always scarier than non-religious cults, because there's always that assumption from them that they're doing right, and any wrong they're doing is for the right reason, so that's fine. Feel her love by slitting somebody open. Just the two things, there's such a dissonance between the two things. Frightened the life out of me.
They're doing a great job. I have to like think back to like the first time I played the game, because they're making the show as if it's the first time that you're experiencing this thing, because like, when you get to that part, you've played it so many times, it's like I just run around them, and I forget the like horror of what they're actually doing in the forest. And so to have them show it up close, because in the game you have to keep a distance so you're not like caught by them, and like it make you sit in the like uncomfortableness of how gruesome it is like was such a good decision.
Yeah. And like props to that guy, whoever he was, who was playing like the leader of that group of them. He just like gave off, I don't know, Charles Manson kind of energy. Like just
terrifying. Yeah.
Oh, in the chat, I think it's good they've showed two different sides to the Seraphites too. Yeah, I agree. There's that whole lovely, oh, can I have a hammer? And then there's that.
Yeah, I like that they're
both
humanizing.
kind of fucked up, but
and I think it's going more into the lore of like the Seraphites pre death of the prophet, and then what it's turned into now that the prophet is gone, because you only really read about who the prophet really was, but then the show I think is doing a good job at showing how like twisted your beliefs can be when you don't, when you lose your like leader or whatever.
I mean, I finish Yellow Jackets now, so I'm all up on bears and moose hog and religious iconoclasty. I
still need to watch that show at some point.
Yeah, you do. I'll watch it again with you.
I was just gonna say, I think even on I like that, like even on an episode where like they lean into like just how kind of sinister and horrific like the Seraphites' actions are, we still before that see like a group of them that have been like lined up against the wall and executed, and then there's like the graffiti underneath, like mocking the corpses.
The feel this bitch actually made me laugh, but then it was like, wait, that's a really clever and terrifying message that they're using. Very clear like iconography, I guess, to like the Seraphites are doing it to the WLF, and the WLF is giving it back. Because last week we saw the lights that were all on the Seraphites that had been hung, and then this week there was a very clear message on above all the bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about because when you see like when they've been lynched and like the like lights above them and stuff. I do like kind of how dark it all is as well. Like again, I always enjoy like kind of like stories that lean into the dark and the gruesome and stuff, like that we're not kind of given much space to breathe. Like everywhere you go in the city, this war and this conflict is like just like bearing down on you. There's corpses, and then there's obviously the living ones who are trying to kill anything that moves. And I very much like the way that like kind of they've given this sense of like it is a war and it's an ongoing war. I'm just racking my brains to see if there's anything else, if everything else I want to say is related to the future, or if there's anything else I want to say that I can say without spoiling anything that's yet to happen.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's
yeah, I don't know.
Should we spoil things? Should we start spoiling things?
Yes, please.
Let's, because I feel like I have some things I want to say.
Okay, so for anyone who has not played the game and has only seen up to season 2, episode 5, and you want to go into the rest of the show completely blind, this is your spoiler warning now. This is your chance to run while you still can. And if you want to carry on and listen to the conversation, do so at your own risk, because we're going to talk about things that happen in the game and predictions for the future of the show. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, there's a few, but like while we're in the Seraphite Forest, and then we go to the hospital. Actually, no, mainly the hospital, because I'm getting Abby's days out of order, because Abby almost being lynched happened. I was thinking like there should have been a hint of like Abby happening next, but that happens to her on day 1, and it's a completely different group of Seraphites. That's fine. But
Hashtag not all Seraphites.
we don't get any hints that Abby's been in the hospital in this like unlike game, but we do get mention of Basement 3, which hasn't been explored because they shut off B2 and B1 when they discovered the spores. So that seems to me to suggest that that's where the Rat King is, and that's where Abby's going to end up.
Yeah,
I'm wondering. Well, they in the podcast they kind of tease it. They're like, oh, and like no one knows what's on B3. Wink, wink, and it's like, wonder what that's about. But my question is, we see Ellie turn the lights on in the hospital. We don't see her like turn a generator on or anything in the way that Abby does. But what if they change it to where it's like stuff is happening at the same time? Because Ellie turns on, or Abby turns the generator on in the game, and that's what allows the Rat King to be like awakened. But then in this, it's like Ellie turns those lights on. Maybe if it's a level below them or 2, I don't remember where they were B1 or B2. If it's like happening at the same time, so it's more of a thing for the audience to be like, oh shit, they were so close to each other this whole time.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I like that change or not, but I don't think I dislike it.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I like it.
Because they've not mentioned her being a prisoner and having escaped, I think it kind of has to be at the same time to like. Well, I mean, not necessarily, but I think to like make sure there's no continuity error. Like, where why are they not talking about this? But it needs to be like at the same time. So maybe like, for argument's sake, Nora had freed Abby and then gone to like help do like the rest of a shift, which is where Ellie caught her. And Abby's in the middle of like searching through the hospital looking for the med kits stuff, and then it all kind of happens together, because a lot of people assumed it happened at the same time in the game. Even now, I mean, we know it's not, because we know there's dialogue referencing that she stole a boat, but a lot of people kind of still go, oh, when Ellie's torturing Nora, you can hear the Rat King in the distance, which is a like kind of persistent myth about part 2. So I guess like it would make sense for that. Like
maybe they're like, what if we made that a real thing for the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, And maybe that would explain, like, it would maybe explain how Nora knew about the spores. Like, I can't imagine Abby going down there without a gas mask on, like,
Yeah.
because she would be immediately dead.
Hmm.
So I think maybe that's if Nora knows about them and her making the choice to go down there anyway. I don't know. Like, I feel like it would all connect somehow. And maybe some of the questions that I have about this episode would be like answered.
Yeah, I think so if we know that the beginning conversation where Leon got sealed in, that happened beforehand, and because of how Leon is when we come across him in the thing,
It has to have been like a couple of years.
has to have been a couple
I
of
was
years.
gonna say
So
time
they
has
wouldn't have
passed.
been
Yeah.
able to keep that quiet for that long. So I would assume that people would then already know about spores and to stay
Right.
away from spores. So those would have been barricaded off for a long time, and people would know not to go down there and eventually why. In which case, then Abby would definitely take a gas mask down there.
Oh, and you know what we might see? Because it felt like Nora might have, I don't know, she knew if she knew where she was going, but it would have made sense. Maybe that same elevator shaft was like where she helped Abby get through
Yeah.
to get down to those lower floors. Because they said that the stairwells had been sealed off, and then the main entrance had been sealed off. So
Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
have been the only way in. So if Nora knew about it, like maybe we'll see it again in season 3, and like that's how Abby gets into
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously it's kind of there's more speculation because I don't know. I guess I understand why that they've not mentioned Navi at all in this because
Mhm.
obviously when we're playing as Ellie, kind of climbing through the vents, and that's when like the conversation, like there's the two WLF who like kind of accusing Nora of complicity. But yeah, I think I understand why they've not done that and kind of because then the TV audience kind of seeing that like and mentioning she's like, well, why aren't we seeing what she's doing or whatever
Maybe.
else? And they kind of don't want to play the hand too much for people who don't know and like say, oh yeah, by the way, this entire next season is going to be about Abby. Like, so there might be that way of approaching it, but yeah, I think that's the only thing that really makes sense is kind of like doing it that way because she has to go down there and like you can't like kind of go down there by accident because the way spores have been introduced. So it has to be like kind of, well, this was ground zero. We've cleared everything out elsewhere. So but there might be stuff down there that you can find.
Yeah, well, and then I'm thinking about it too, like in the game, Abby, after she goes out a different way that she came in. She goes in out through like the garage, but in that first scene where they're talking about like the map of the hospital, they make it very clear that like these are the only entrances to these floors and they've been sealed off because spores cannot escape. Otherwise, we're all dead. Like the way that they've changed like the lore of the spores makes me think that if Abby goes in that way, that's the only way out. And when she comes out, she's going to find her dead friend
Yeah.
who was like beaten to death by Ellie,
Ooh,
too.
yeah, I never thought because
When we come back to, like, when we get to next season.
yeah, because I mean, it kind of makes sense that there's another way that no one's discovered because like Ellie also like manages to get out of the hospital and back to the theater. Even in the game, like we don't see
Yeah.
how she does that without the entire hospital knowing. But I guess Ellie's kind of sneakier and smaller and can like go through
Mhm.
events and stuff. But yeah, having Abby kind of discover Nora on the way out would be, I think, a very interesting way of doing like change, especially if she's at the point of the journey that we think she's likely to be, and she's like trying to redeem herself, but then she sees this and she doesn't know exactly what's happened, and then the next day
Mhm.
she sees Tommy and like it all connects, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
shit, this is all coming back to haunt me. But I've got this thing I've got to go and do to rescue Lev on the island anyway, so
Mhm.
I've got to try and shove this out of my mind somehow.
I think the way, like, because in the game, you have the choice to, like, kill everyone you come across if you want. It in the show they're making each death of a character have more of an impact, which I think is why they're going to I'm guessing that they're going to like highlight the deaths of all of Abby's friends
Yeah.
to Abby as a character, like to Abby, because Abby, we only see that she knows what happened to Manny was as a result, and she until she gets to the theater, she doesn't even know that Ellie's there, but so she thinks that it's Tommy that's killed all these people, but it's really just Manny and then Mel and Owen. But
Yeah.
if they she
Well,
goes on
that's
this
almost the
journey.
entire crew this time around. Like, so it's only Nora.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they've erased some of the other players. We didn't see. There was no. Oh my
Jordan.
god, I don't remember her name. The
Leah.
PSP girl
Oh,
in the hospital.
Whitney.
Whitney. Yeah, there's no Whitney. So there's a lot less people that Ellie is going to like kill along the way. So making the impact of each one more important or highlighted, I think is kind of important in this version. So I would like to see like Abby come across, because we don't I don't know if we don't see Abby find out about what happens to Nora.
Yeah. I'd like
In
to
the-
see it because Caitlin Diva does great angry face. She's
Yeah.
like, I've watched her in so many other things, and when she's thwarted or angry, she has this amazing angry face, and I
Yeah.
want to see that.
Well,
I
and
think-
also Abby doesn't know who Tommy is in this version
No, that's true.
because Tommy wasn't there.
No, hadn't even thought of
Yeah.
that.
So they have to, I guess, kind of change that. Which that makes me think the snipers thing won't be as. I don't know.
If I mean, yeah, they can afford to have her see the deaths of every one of her friends without it kind of derailing her other arc in the same way that it would have if she knew about Jordan and Leah and Nick like early on.
Yeah.
It would have impacted because she's like only beginning to like go on this redemption journey. Whereas I think in this version she can, and potentially if she sees Tommy and think Tommy's behind it and doesn't even know who he is, they can potentially like keep it separate almost from like that.
Yeah.
So it's only when she goes there, like gets to the theater, and that's when the realization hits. Like she sees Ellie say, and it's like, oh, this is why this has all been happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think they're making it less. I think like because on day one the WLF just assumed that Ellie and Dina are Seraphites, and then it's not until day 2 that they're like, oh, there's a lone male trespasser. Just kidding. There's another one. There's a girl. And so the WLF are like aware of Ellie, even if they don't know who she is, but they haven't made that like apparent in the show that the WLF know that she's there quite as heavily. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was the chase into from the TV station into the tunnels, but then everyone who chased them died to the infected. It seemed
right.
like. And then the only ones that were chasing like didn't really know what happened, and then sealed off the place where Nora and Ellie went, so they don't know. They just know that someone was like an intruder. Could have been anyone. Could have been for any reason.
Yeah. So I don't even know if they would have like a description of Ellie at this point.
Yeah, especially if she's already evaded the dog, Bonnie, and I'm not bitter, honest.
No.
And then yeah, but she's evaded the dog and like got into and got in unseen all the way to like to Nora. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how much of the like like the background conversations that the WLF have when you're playing the game that I like didn't realize that I am actually paying attention to, and now until we're like talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, wait, these are all these things that they say in the game that we haven't heard in the same way in the show, which I guess is not information that is as important if you're not playing with a controller. I don't know. I don't know how important it is or not to this.
Yeah. I think the other thing I want to know, like, maybe at the end of next episode before we go in, because we got day 3 left, which is going to be episode 7 after
Yeah.
we've done like the episode full of flashbacks. So in that, they've got to kind of like finish everything off. So in this version, Tommy and Jesse split up looking for Ellie and Dina rather than like going to help them. So I won't like. I imagine we won't see much of like the journey that Ellie doesn't see. Like, I don't think we're going to like have huge diversions to them. But I think the big question in my mind is, once she's like tortured Nora and find out where Abby is, does Ellie return to the theater to like check on Dina and also kind of like get seen to like in the way she does at the end of day 2 in the game? Or is this version of Ellie going to completely bypass that and just stay out and continue the quest, kind of ignoring what everything else that's going on and all her friends are there?
Yeah.
Well, I think there is a shot of her and Jesse like in the daylight from the trailer. So I feel like it's a kind of important for her to go back so that Dina can see the toll that it's taking on her. And that's kind of where Dina starts to like pull back and is like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And that's kind of where they all decide. Like that night, they all decide that they need to find Tommy and go home. And then
Yeah.
throughout the next day, that's the plan up until Ellie is like, no, but the best way to get Tommy is to find Abby, because Tommy's also looking for Abby, which is obviously not like Ellie just wants to go out and find Abby, and she's kind of just going with the charade. But I feel like there's a lot of character work that happens in that when she goes back to the theater between like the dynamic of like her and Dina, and then Ellie and Jesse talking, and that's where like Jesse finds out or asks Ellie if Dina's pregnant, which I really hope that they don't. There's something so tragic about Dina never getting the chance to tell Jesse that I really hope they don't change that.
Yeah.
That he figures it out on his own. But I don't know how they're going to do that if she doesn't have like the as awful morning sickness.
Well, that's
she
it.
does
'Cause in the game, she's like stays behind because she's poorly.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. That's why she stays behind. And yeah, she's sleeping a lot. Where is she? She's asleep.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
this time
well.
she'll be wounded, so that's a different. And Jesse isn't there to help them. Jesse's there to bring them
Take home.
home.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they've got that kind of like, we'll go and find Tommy and then we're going home, that potentially gives like, I don't know, it might deepen the tragedy, like for when Jesse dies, for like, you know, he didn't even know that he was going to be a father, and then he's like taken from him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that follows, if they go with that, follow even despite the changes of like why Jesse is there, why Tommy's there, it still kind of follows Ellie's descent on day 3 of like, we're going in, this is the plan, and Ellie's like, sure, this is the plan, but if I get the opportunity to deviate from that plan to find Abby, I'm gonna take it, and she does.
Yeah,
but
I think seeing Ellie like do that like is potentially, again, if the way they're approaching it with the mask on mask off stuff and having that like kind of like they go in to find Tommy and then she sees an opportunity like, no, that's where Abby is, and kind of split from Jesse.
There is a complete emotional immaturity about Ellie. Like, it's like the selfishness of a toddler, where toddlers can be selfish. They don't know they're being selfish, and they're not doing it with any malice behind it. But the center of their world is them. So even though Ellie is saying to Dina, "I would die for you," but that's not what's happening here. And then when Dina says, "That's why I love you," she's like, "You love me." There is still this absolute self-centered selfishness that's going on, which shows a lack of emotional maturity. Because at the end of the day, she's dragging her. She, whereas Dina has her own mind and has decided to go along, like even though she's not said "you go, I go," still not bitter. Could be worse. Could be a dog called Bonnie, but it's but Dina has her own mind and her own autonomy, but Ellie is relying on that so she doesn't actually have to take a stand and say, "Come on, let's go. I'll take you."
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
whole self-centeredness, which some people will just call focus, but actually her girlfriend, who she's purporting to love, is pregnant and could be killed any day. And I know in Left Behind they do the whole like any of us can be killed any day, but it still feels like this is the most important thing to her. And I'm not sure when that happened. I'm not sure if it's always been there, and
I
it's just
I
something I've been
feel like
thinking about.
I feel like it was kind of always there from the point where it, like when Joel was killed, and then she like kind of saw it, and then obviously woke up with the PTSD, eager to get out of hospital. When she
Yeah.
found out Dina was lying to her about knowing stuff and like saying, "Oh, you cost me how many months," and like that's, you see that face again, like the kind of thing. So it's kind of
Yeah.
always been there. She's been hiding it, but like that obsession is already got a tux in. It'll just get stronger over time to the point where it's just like
Because I feel like
she'll
there's
stop hiding it or she'll hide it less.
because I feel like there's a difference between being reckless, which is shown when they go out on the patrol, and it's like, "Don't do that," or fucking are they going to do what they want anyway? So there's a difference between being reckless and being reckless with other people's lives in the way that actually it's two lives that she's being reckless with now. And and we've all made mistakes for the wrong person. Dina, come on, go home. Like, it's
Yeah. Well, I feel like it kind of it mirrors Joel a little bit of like not fully taking responsibility, because I think Ellie's mindset is I love Dina and I don't want anything to happen to her. So I will go out and I will do this so that she doesn't get hurt, but like I'm going to do this no matter what. So I
Yeah.
think Dina saying that she wants this just as much as Ellie does absolves the guilt if anything were to happen to Dina.
Yeah.
That Ellie's like, oh, well, now she's here by her own choice,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and
I feel like it
and
mirrors Joel a
Dina's
little
like,
bit.
that's again in both versions of the story. Dina's kind of enabling Ellie up
Yeah.
to the point where she realizes that it's too far and stops, and that's when the conflict between them arises. When
Right.
as soon as she's not enabling anymore, or she's perceived to be like the barrier, then it's like, well, which we haven't really seen as much yet in the show, but I think we will probably see quite heavily in episode 7.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's as much as Joel saving Ellie in season 1 is for his love for her, it is also born out of a little bit of selfishness that we're seeing in Ellie. Like, well, I did this because to save you. And it's like, well, did you save me for me or did you save me for you?
Yeah.
And then I remember the conversation that Tommy and Joel have where Tommy is like, all of that stuff that you made me do or all that stuff that we did. And he's like, oh, well, I did that so you could survive. Like
Yeah.
we did that together to like it, like he's not taking the accountability for the horrific actions and how they can impact other people. I don't know. I'm seeing a parallel that it's not fully fleshed out in my brain, but
Yeah. There's
I think it's
something
there.
there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, next week we're getting flashbacks. Which have you seen the preview? Like we only got 30-second preview, like very small, but
Yeah.
it looks like kind of we're seeing the entire timeline of like Joel and Ellie's
Mm-hmm.
past up to the point where they kind of fell out before the show started. Because obviously we'll see the birthday gift.
Mm-hmm.
There's all the bits and presumably that confrontation where Ellie finds out what Joel's done and
Mm-hmm.
breakdown. I'm very kind of interested to see exactly how they do all of it, because it looks like we won't have. Well, I think everyone's pretty much assuming that we won't have the Finding Strings flashback in there as well. Like, so we won't see kind of that, but we might see. Again, I think we mentioned this before, and like on here, we're talking about Eugene's death might be a stand-in for the two teenagers in the Finding Strings flashback. Like, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
could have saved them if the cure had been made, and why was this? And that's the kind of clash between them.
Yeah.
But yeah, any thoughts or predictions on anything else we might see? I don't think we're going to see much in the present day in that episode at all. Like maybe something to frame it, but
Yeah, but even then, like they ended this episode with the beginning of the flashback. So I'm curious. I mean, I'm trying to remember in the Riley episode, I don't think there was any present day stuff. I think it was all flashback.
they had Ellie like rooting around the kitchen for like medical
Oh,
supplies,
that's
and
right.
then
That's
kind
right.
of her
Yeah.
mind drifted back.
Yeah. So maybe they'll do something like that, but I just think maybe not because they already showed. Or maybe maybe the end of the episode was just a way to be like, please don't tune out. Pedro Pascal is coming back. We promise. He's gonna be here. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, for all the Pedro Pascal mums, like
yeah.
who
Well,
just like only watched the show because he was in it.
I think
Well, it's
maybe
not
there
the
won't
only
be
reason I watched it.
just a big reason. No, I think that maybe they won't have any of that because if they had ended the episode at like cut to black after what happened to Nora, and then it was like next week on The Last of Us, and it's like here's Joel, it wouldn't like make sense to audiences to be like, wait, what's happening? So I think framing it as like here's a flashback, get ready for next week. I just don't know
Yeah,
how they're gonna show it all. Are they gonna show it like um in order, or are they gonna like bounce back and forth between parts? Are they gonna show how it devolved, or are they gonna like start with the bad stuff and then end with the spaceship?
I be very surprised if they don't show it like kind of in a chronological order. Like that probably
Yeah.
makes the most sense. If it's all flashback, they may as well kind of like go, this happened before this and this happened before
Mm-hmm.
this. Otherwise, it like again, we especially if they're at different points taking care to make sure probably to too much that the audiences are coming along with them, then they're not going to kind of risk making them not understand at that point. Either
Yeah.
that or it's all a fake out, and like they just be like, oh yeah, she goes, oh Joel, I had the most terrible dream.
Wakes up and Joel is in the
Yeah.
shower, which
I
if
was
you're
in
of a certain
Seattle.
age, you will not get the reference, but it's how they did it on Dallas. Bobby got shot and he died and everything was terrible. And at the end of it, of like a year's worth, it was all a dream and he was in the shower. So it was just the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's people who would legitimately love that as like the way to like kind of wrap it all up, no matter the fact that that's like the worst writing trope ever. But um, yeah, it did kind of look like that in like a funny way as well. Like there was something uncanny about the way Ellie smiled at the end of it as well. I don't know, like I couldn't put my finger on it. It just just
That
seemed
smile said,
odd.
I know it's my birthday. You know it's my birthday. Let's get with the birthdaying.
I've seen people say that they think we're getting the porch scene next episode, but I think they're holding on to it.
Yeah, I if they've not shown that already, it makes more sense to kind of have the relationship deteriorate in episode 6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure where they put it in episode 7. Like, there's part of me that hopes that they've. I mean, I've seen people confirm that it's going to be shown in this season, so I think it makes more sense for it to be episode 7 to be like kind of like we showed all the deterioration, but there actually was this reconciliation, and maybe that kind of brings Ellie back to the present, like when she decides to leave Seattle and she's kind of going, okay.
I can see them putting it there. Because I feel like it's so important that we see, like, it's at the very end of the game, and it's like Ellie is willing to go this far because she's holding on to that last conversation that she had with him, and is like, this is her trying to make up for the fact that they never fully like reconciled. But I think it won't. I don't think it'll have as much. I don't think saving it and not showing it until like the very end of the series or the end of like the part 2 story. I don't know if they're going to go beyond what happens in part 2 in the show, but like if it's the very end, people might forget that happened in season 2, that like we saw her walk by. So it makes sense for a TV audience,
especially if you've got another 2-year
gap
coming.
Yeah, so it makes sense that they're going to put it in at the end of season, and at the end of this season too, because they don't explain why they all. Well, I guess they all kind of had to go back to Jackson because Jesse's gone, and then Tommy was all fucked up, and like they were all really fucked up. Visual explanation of why they decided to go home.
Yeah, although saying that, like, if they did like I'm thinking of this like kind of as the point where after Ellie's killed Mel and Owen, and then Tommy's reunited with her and brought her back and said, like, she gets to live. They got what they deserve, but she gets to live. You're okay with that? And she kind of uses that as a justification to be like, okay, we can go. And then it ends with like Abby turning up, because if they do the full I'd be very surprised if they did the full confrontation, because I don't think how they'd like go back in time to the start of Abby's story after Ellie and Abby have fought. So it presumably
No, I don't think that would be as impactful. I think it's like part of it, at least in the game, it's important that you connect with Abby and you play with her for so long, and then you have to come back to the theater as Abby against Ellie. Like I'm curious how, not that we have to, because that's, years away probably, but like how they're gonna show that and have the same sort of impact it does, because you're not playing as anyone in the show like you are in the game. But anyway,
it's also going to be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to kind of watch, like, we've been watching it episodically, and then we have a 2-year gap and watch episodically again, and then like watch it as like a binge, like of both seasons, like once it's done, like see if it does that change the impact of it. Has the fact that like we've got to wait so long, does that alter it? So that'll be interesting to see, because I think it's not a fault of the writing or the storytelling or the casting or anything else. It's a fault of how HBO makes TV. The fact that we have to wait so bloody long for these things. But it's still a huge potential detriment to like the story. I mean, the fact that they're cutting it that way, like, and I really didn't think they would cut it the way that the game cuts it. But I think that's probably like going to be like the bravest piece of like decision making they've done, like storytelling wise, to like they're going to do that potentially where it's even harder with a TV audience with a 2-year break than it is with gamers, and that's saying something, because but yeah, that's 2 year. The fact that it's a 2-year break and not just next year is going to be like a make or break.
I'm just thinking about like, what is the promotion of the show going to look like for season 3? Because I fully expected us to get more this season, more like half and half of Abby Ellie stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I.
But it seems like they're following more of the structure of the game, which is completely just not what I thought they were going to do. Because I was like, that's not going to work for a TV audience.
Yeah,
So
I
maybe
was
they're
I was
like,
genuinely like I was convinced that they weren't doing it the same as the game when people were saying it was like,
yeah,
no, it's not gonna. I was like, and
I
then they
just,
did. It was like, you crazy bastards, you did it.
yeah. I mean, I'm happy because I think I enjoy how the story is told that way, like personally, but that's because I know the story.
Yeah.
But if I were a TV audience, general audience member watching, and then it ends the way it ends, and then trailer for season 3 comes out. Where's Ellie? Like, I'm here for
Yeah.
Ellie. Where is she? You know, I don't know. I just don't know what they're gonna do because at that point, Ellie is like, what? How much of it are they gonna? Are Ellie and Dina and them gonna be in season 3? I don't know. This is just racking my brain.
Yeah, because like the other thing that kind of baffled me as well is like they knew this was renewed for a third season before they started. They probably knew that this was renewed for third season once they were starting to film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, was there a logic to not filming if especially if it's like the two sides, like season 2 is Ellie, season 3 is Abby? Was there a logic to not filming it all together in the same like time frame and like then
Yeah.
they could just release one this year, one next year?
I don't know enough about production things to maybe because TV budget is different than a movie budget, because I know they do that with movies that have like a part 1 and a part 2. They film
Yeah, that's like
all
because
at
they did
once,
that with like
but
Endgame and Infinity War and that.
Endgame,
Yeah,
Wicked.
yeah, Wicked, they just filmed both at the same time. I mean, all the Lord of the Rings, they filmed all of them.
Yeah.
So I don't
yeah.
know.
If it's a budget thing, that kind of makes like, yeah, if it's like we get this much this year, we'll get this much next year, but you don't get it until then.
I
But
guess because you don't like, for a TV show, you don't make like money at a box office in the same way.
yeah, I'd love an answer to that though, because that seemed like the easiest way to kind of prevent all of the issues that might be caused by waiting for 2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess if someone's crunching the numbers with the money and going, no, we can't spend that money until we've got that money for this budget.
Yeah, it's also possible because I think on the podcast they talked about this, that when they were doing season 1, they were still doing like the final mixes of like the last few episodes when the first episode aired. So like and I think a lot of TV shows will do this, where the first episode will air and they're not even like 100% done with the full season.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they're like taking any real time feedback and they're like, let's throw this scene in the finale if we can make it work to get people to like want to stay and watch for season 3. I don't know. I don't know.
Potentially, I mean they've said that they're going to tell the story regardless of what criticism it gets, but at the same time we know that they've answered like the biggest criticism from last year was not enough infected, and this time it's infected palooza. It's like every episode has had something in.
Yeah, I feel like they had to have known that they were getting a season 3 structuring the show that the way that they are. I don't know, I just feel like I wouldn't have taken the chance if I had not known if HBO was renewing. I would be like, okay, how can we keep audiences engaged so that we get a season 3?
Yeah, I mean,
don't know.
imagine that there's like an alternate reality where this ends with like Abby pointing the gun and we let you live and you wasted it. Cut to black. The Last of Us has been cancelled.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They had to have known like well in advance to be able to do it. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to cancel The Last of Us anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, like, if they'd not had that announcement about being renewed for the third season, like, that would have been an interesting reveal.
Yeah. It's like The Sopranos, like just Abby sits down with a cup of tea, fade to black. Yeah, I do think it is going to be a little bit jarring because I was hoping to see more of Abby this season. Because to me, it's like this part of the game is when they're getting together, and that's the big fight. But then to not see that much of Abby,
Yeah. Again,
and
it's
to have Ellie's absolute loathing based on one act that Abby does. And yes, it's a bad act. It takes away the man who she sees as her father. But I think we need, before we get to the big fight, we need more rounding out of Abby, who she is, her softer sides, her hard sides, the boat. So the idea that we've just got all Ellie this season and then all Abby next season, it just doesn't feel cohesive to me.
I would have been okay with it, but like if they had kept it exactly the same the way that they structure the game, but it feels like they are trying to make Abby a more sympathetic character by introducing her motives and who she is so early that
Yeah.
I would have expected to see like some sort of flashback with her dad, like some of
Yeah.
the stuff that we get when you
The
start to play
zebra
as
stuff.
Ellie, yeah, or when you start to play as Abby. And so not getting, and I can't imagine there's time for that with what we
Yeah.
have left. I'm
yeah.
just like surprised that that's the route that they chose.
Because if she's just going to be an off-screen present, like the villain, the target, essentially this season, and then show up at the end, that almost makes it like even more the case that like they shouldn't have done as much exposition as they did. Like they should
Yeah.
save the reveal of all of that for like season 3.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like they introduced Abby's nightmares this season for a reason that I can't imagine we're not going to come back to that before the end of the season. But I'm just like, where's the time? You know, if next episode is all flashback and then the finale is day 3, where does it fit in? Assuming if episode 7 is like day 3 plus we get the porch scene, where are they going to fit any Abby stuff in? Because I feel like they should. I just don't know where.
Yeah,
it would go.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they've got it'll be. We need to like, I think, have this conversation once we've seen episode 7 as well. Like, kind of return to it, because then it'll either be, oh, okay, they've done X, Y, and Z, and this makes sense why they've put that at the start of the show, or it'll be, no, that was still a nonsensical decision that like they should have like cut those lines of dialogue, and it would have made it kind of better. Just kept her as the villain this season, and then entirely start from scratch next season with like, you know, now we're going to show it why she did what she did and humanize her more.
Yeah. I don't know. I come on this podcast and I start feeling like, oh, they could have done this, they could have done this, and then next Monday morning, I'll be there going, oh, exactly the same. And then I'll come on the podcast and then go, oh yeah, they did that wrong. It's like there's a real like ebb and flow to how I feel about the whole thing, depending on whether I'm watching it or talking about it.
I just feel like the story is so polarizing one way or the
Yeah.
other. I feel like most people either really love it or really don't like it. So it's hard not to be nitpicky.
Yeah, it is.
It feels harder this season compared to season 1. Season 1, I think I was just so excited that it was actually good that I was like, I don't care what they change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the thing as well is like I've said before, like overall I'm enjoying it. All these things like are relatively small things in the grand scheme of things out. There's nothing that's made me go, oh no, I'm completely out. I don't like this.
Exactly
Worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff that's like, you know, I don't think I would have done that, but I can see why they've done that. It's an interesting change. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
because there was even a question. We have a thing at New Year's here called Big Fat Quiz of the Year, and it's celebrities answering questions. And I watched a clip of it today and last year's, and it had a question about The Last of Us on it. It was like the most beautiful moment in TV history was episode 3 of which series? And it's like, I'm like, I
I
know
love
this,
that.
I know this, because they mentioned it was a game adaptation as well. I'm like, I know this one. Yeah. And I was like, of course, Bill and Frank, because that was just stunning telly. And I think we were spoiled with how good it was. And it was
Mhm.
quite a simple story last time.
That's
I
true. It
think
does. It
this
is
is
more
the thing.
complicated.
Man, apocalypse happens, man gets girl, travels across country, saves girl. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and it's not a story that hasn't been told before. It's not like a brand new kind of idea. I mean, not the
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 is a new story either, but
But
again,
then,
the way they have approached it and like I think is a lot different
but then
than
this
Mhm.
season, we've got man dies, girl goes on rampage. In the meantime, girl is lesbian, lovely. Lesbian is having baby. There is another guy. There's been a thing in Jackson. There's more. Now we've got spores and stalkers. It's like there's an awful lot more
The
to pack
scope.
in.
Yeah, there's just a lot more going on.
Yeah. Whereas the first season was pretty much an amble across dangerous country to get to this haven, which
Hmm.
they did do.
Yeah. I find myself have to like reel myself in with like all of these little details that are nippy.
Mm.
Even listening to the podcast today, they were talking about how they changed it from Ellie getting shot with an arrow. Hello.
We can't hear you. But welcome.
It's a silent minority.
Oh no. But yeah, Ellie, they were like, "Oh yeah, in the show, now we changed it to Dina getting shot in the leg because," and Craig Mazin was like, "In the game, it's Ellie who gets shot with an arrow in the leg." And I was like, it was the shoulder.
Yeah.
Actually, Craig, the fuck?" And then I was like, "All right, reel it in. Reel it in. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a of a detail."
Honestly, I am that person. When we were watching Angel last night, I'm like, well, that's not happened, right? Has it? Like, I'm like, that's rubbish because you'd have to
Yeah,
do
oh yeah.
this.
Anytime someone does CPR on telly, she's just like, no, not the compressions aren't hard enough.
Well, that's not how you do that. Like, even taking into account the fact that they've changed the amount of rescue breaths you do, still not right. It's all sorts of little things like that. I get very annoyed.
Yeah.
Phil just told me I'm muted. I should be.
Yeah,
There you go.
we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son's very good at muting the microphone when he's using those, which it's a good skill. That was pretty intense. I've just literally finished it in the last 15 minutes.
Ah.
Fresh out. We were talking about the episode and we talked like kind of about everything kind of spoiler free in the sense of not talking about anything in the future, and then we dived straight into. So for the last 40 minutes, we've been talking like full spoilers for the game and everything else, and we were just
great.
kind of on talking about kind of how the way they've set things up and the way we've not seen very much of Abby after the first 2 episodes. It seems to be like leaving a lot more for season 3, which we thought would be the case anyway, but also potentially means that they shouldn't have revealed too much about her in episode 1 about her origins.
Yeah, I agree.
But since you've just freshly watched the show, I don't know if you want to give your kind of overall verdict on it.
Well, usually when I've been on this podcast before, I've watched it with my friends, and then a couple of days or the day after, I'll watch it again and like actually be thinking about it. So I've not done that this time, obviously. So this is kind of just very much my initial thoughts without putting really any too much thought into it. Ultimately, I really liked it. It was a really fun episode. The Ellie Day 2 section, Stalker offices, the Seraphites, the hospital, that's one of my favorite sections of the game to play. So I was really looking forward to seeing it adapted. Interesting change to have Dina come with Ellie on that journey at first, and getting a wee bit of Dina's backstory, a bit more insight into where she comes from, because you get a slight bit of that in the game, but not much. So it was good to have a bit more of a fleshed out story for Dina's backstory. But ultimately, I'm not sure I liked that change. It kind of leads on from Ellie last week being quite happy with the pregnancy and being all excited about being a dad. And I wasn't too enamored with that change, and this kind of follows on. Like, Ellie at the start of this episode was still with Dina, and I really feel like she needs that separation to go and be what we know from the game.
Yeah.
So to have her eventually split off from Dina, I wish that maybe this was there, because again, I've not watched this with this in mind. I've watched it once. Did she ever look back to be like, maybe I should go that way with Dina and Jesse? And then
There's a moment like as she's at the end of the forest and she sees the hospital and she's like looking back and then goes like, there's that kind of, I think it's like a couple of seconds, but it's like a moment of like, I could reunite with Jesse and Dina, or I could go and get Nora.
It could also be read though as, I can't go that way, so let's go this way.
Yeah, but we were talking earlier about like how the way Bella Ramsey's version of Ellie is portrayed, rather than the kind of like slow descent into obsession.
Yeah,
it's more of a mask on, mask off. So when she's with other people, she's like playing normal, and then you see glimpses of it, like after she played the guitar, and like her face drops, or in this moment, like just when like it just the blankness, the dead stare comes in, and that's where it's like, okay, I don't have to hide it anymore. I don't have to pretend.
Yeah, I hadn't been looking at it as a mask on, mask off situation, but yeah, I think that once the whole season's finished, then I watch it back again, start to finish, like in a binge session. That's going to be. I'll definitely be watching it with that in mind. The Nora section. Wow, for the hospital section. She got into the hospital a bit too easy. I thought that was a wee bit too quick. She would it literally
It's
went
just
from
a speed run
I was
strat.
gonna say that. Yeah, that just means like my no kill speed run is canon.
I saw the opportunity, which didn't seem to happen, for them to call the dog Bear. I thought that would have been really nice, but I don't think that happened.
Thank
We're
you.
only laughing because that's exactly what Phil said earlier.
That would have been a nice wee nod if you just go, "Come on, Bear." That would have been enough. So that didn't happen, and yeah, I think the stalker section was really cool. I really enjoyed that, and it was a good way of bringing Jesse into it, having him save them, and basically hammering home the fact that they're out of their depth. Like, they shouldn't be in Seattle. They're in a bad place. So hammering that home by having Jesse come in and save them from 50 odd stalkers. It was a really good section. However, I do kind of wish that maybe you could almost cut the stalker section out, have Jesse come in during the Seraphites and spend a bit more time in the hospital, actually infiltrating the hospital, because going through a gap in the wall and then suddenly being where Nora is, like, even if she got through the gap and then spend like one scene just kind of like dodging patrols, like in the corridors.
It feels like they cut that. Like it feels like that. Like they had filmed more of that and they just decided to cut it. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine where that was like the first decision to be like, okay, she gets in and then there's Nora. I don't know. It feels like there was something missing there that.
And if they did film it, was it bad, so therefore they cut it, or did somebody say oh no, this episode's too long, because it felt too short.
We were saying before, it's about 10 minutes shorter than the other episodes.
See, put in 10 minutes of her dodging people in the hospital, maybe killing a couple. Whitney, there's a really good example of Ellie killing somebody who is maybe not innocent. We don't really know if Whitney's innocent, but like she's really relatable. So like have Whitney, we're playing a game and Whitney's playing a game. We're watching a television show. Have Whitney watching an episode of Friends or something, and like having a good laugh when Ellie comes up and stabs her in the neck. Like, they could have done a bit more with it. They could have even had Whitney watching Chernobyl. Something a bit more grim, but get a wee Craig Mazin thing in there,
I would have loved. Okay, so there's I don't know who it is. There's someone who made like this really cool shot on photo mode of Ellie like coming out of the water in that scene, like where she's backed up to Whitney, and there's so many like Apocalypse Now comparisons you can make with the stories that would have been cool if they had like someone who was Whitney watching some sort of movie, Apocalypse Now, or something that was like very in the same vein of playing a video game, watching someone playing video game kind of thing. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, if your episode's going to be 10 minutes shorter than everything else, like you can't have a whole section that just feels that rushed. Once Ellie met Nora and that chase scene, I thought everything after that was perfect. I thought that whole sequence was just, I mean, it was copied almost verbatim, if not verbatim, from the game. And I can't remember the girl's name that plays Nora, but she was incredible. That kind of when she turned, I was just like, yeah, that little bitch got what you deserved. Oh,
I watch with friends, but when my friends are there, I try not to like say the dialogue along with the characters, because I'm like, I want them to experience it the way that I did. But it was just me and my partner, and so we were getting there, and I was like, that little bitch got what he deserved, and then she said it, and I was like, yes.
I had a similar moment when I was watching it with my friends where the guy started getting hung by the Seraphites, and I went, now she is free. And then like 2 seconds later, the guy said, no, she's free. Or now he is free. Couldn't help myself.
Her name is Tati Gabrielle.
Yeah.
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 She's
awesome.
awesome.
I hope you appreciate my Seraphite hairstyle today, Steve.
I love it. Great.
May she guide us.
As long as you don't end up with like,
I nearly did it. I nearly got some lip liner and did the scar.
This turning into a cosplay podcast soon.
Well, I like to dress up. What can I say?
I was going to say something else. Yeah, it was like the only thing like I didn't really like. This is kind of what we were talking about. Why we're kind of going into like how they're going to do the Abby side of things in like season 3, and there's obviously going to be a 2-year gap where they, while they film it and everything else. So the fact that they've revealed so much about Abby, and they did it again, like they with Nora, because like, that was the only bit of dialogue where she like over exposited about why Abby did it, rather than just kind of a, what he did, how many people he killed kind of thing. It was more like, that was Abby's dad. And it's like, yeah, but we're not going to see any of this till next season. So why are we being told that now still? Yeah. Again, same as with episode 2.
I'm just waiting for what's her name? Not the one who played Donna Noble in Doctor Who.
Catherine Tate.
I was like, I just got this like, that was her dad, and first thing that went through my head was, am I bothered though?
Yeah, maybe it was. Now I'm thinking about it, like Nora's last stitch effort of like
humanizing,
trying to connect with Ellie, like that. Hey, that was her dad, just like Joel, the guy that Abby killed was like your dad. So you obviously understand how bad it feels for your dad to die in front of you. Like I think maybe that is
Yeah.
another. I don't know. It's just it felt clunky the way that it was the dialogue.
If I had more time before jumping onto this podcast, I would have gone and watched parts of episode 2 again. Wouldn't have watched the whole thing. But parts of episode 2, because when Ellie gets that pipe and is walking up to Nora, is that not almost shot or like, shot for
Yeah.
shot, the way that Abby approached Joel?
Yeah, we were
Yes.
that. You mentioned that earlier about like kind of the parallel and like kind of like the way she picks it up and examines it, and then
Yeah,
Even
And
the
you-
fact that it's like golf club shaped.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something that I thought was it's in the game. Ellie, like Nora swings the pipe at her and then takes it
Mhm.
off of her, and then she kind of hits her with it from there. And so I never had it in my mind that that was Ellie being like Abby, whereas the
Mhm.
way that they filmed it and set it up with her picking up the pipe and inspecting it and then hitting her in the leg by the looks of things,
Yep.
that's something that I felt from the show that I didn't feel from the game at all. Was like, oh, that's the point where she became Abby.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
at this point, she is now on the exact same path that Abby was on, and I think that shot, or that scene, may be a big part of their plan to help humanize Abby. Eventually, it's something I've talked about
Yeah.
the last few weeks that I've been on this. Is how are they going to humanize Abby, and basically turning Ellie into being so much like Abby, and her actions definitely feels like part of that.
The game, I feel like the game spent more time drawing parallels between Joel and Abby to get you to sympathize with Abby because you played the first game as Joel, so like you spent so much time with him, and then when you're back on the stick as Abby, it's like, oh, this feels familiar because it's like Joel. But I think the show, even like with the promotion that I've seen them do, like interviews and stuff, they're really trying to force that parallel of Ellie and Abby more because it was there in the game. Like you can obviously draw the parallels that like they were on the same path just at different times.
Yeah.
But I think they're really like focusing on that more in the show.
Which would make sense of Caitlin Dever being so much smaller than Game Abby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that it's a very different framing because like when again like in the game, like when the camera switches towards Ellie, it's more of a kind of like now she's the monster, like she's the horror of the story is like Ellie, whereas in this it's more like you just kind of make the obvious connection, kind of Abby did to Joel, Ellie does to Nora.
Yeah.
And then Brooke was saying before that she wouldn't be surprised if Abby comes up from basement level 3, which we haven't seen anything about yet, and finds Nora in the next season rather than like not knowing about it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a really nice change. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. I had a thought on that because obviously in the game, it's Abby that turns the power on, and then you see from Ellie's point of view the whole what the fuck's the power doing on? And you don't think about it at the time until you've played through the game once, and then the second time you play it, you're like, ha, I know why the power's on. And with there being a year or two between seasons, that's something that a lot of people are likely to forget, and a lot of people do watch shows once and then don't bother watching them again. So I reckon they've had Ellie turn the power on, and I think at during season 3, Abby's going to comment on the power being on, or somebody close to Abby, or somebody will comment on the power being on, which changes the timeline slightly because in the game, Abby has already left. She's killed the Rat King and left
Mm-hmm.
before Ellie gets there. Whereas, yeah, she's killed the Rat King and left by the time Ellie gets there. Whereas if they change it so that they're both there at the same time, it's what I was talking about last week with like having those a chance for them to not meet but be in very close proximity to each other in a very obvious way. And I think Ellie turning the power on is going to be that.
Yeah.
And that kind of changes the like that's another thing that Ellie does to Abby unknowingly, is because the whole reason the Rat King was able to like wake up was because the power gets turned on. If Ellie's the one that turns the power on instead of Abby, it's like, this bitch not only killed all my friends, but I almost died to this fucking
Can you imagine? Oh
demon.
That's a good point. Season 3, Abby's like in the hospital looking for equipment. Suddenly the power comes on and the door just goes.
Yeah. Okay. I like this.
If
I like this.
if they do it as kind of like in like a horror movie way as well, because like we had that whole like the way the stalkers and like they turn the lights on and you see more of them, and like very much a horror movie thing, and there's like plenty of classic monster movies that have done that sort of thing. So plenty of classic monster movies where the big monster comes out because it's like you didn't know it was there, and then all of a sudden something comes, a light turns on or a door opens, and it's just like.
What if this is them highlighting that the stalkers are like smarter because they like stalk their. What if that is like, it will be a foreshadow of how the Rat King actually behaves. Maybe it's been like stalking Abby this whole time while she's down there, and she doesn't know that it's there until the lights come on. That would be so
that would be
creepy.
fucking terrifying, and I'm here absolutely here for it.
Kind of is that way in the game, because I feel like if the power had immediately come on and or if the Rat King wasn't any level of intelligent, it would have just immediately attacked Abby as soon as the power came on, because it obviously can bust through walls, but they're just like making more of a point to show that that is what's happening, rather than it just be like, you have to get Abby to find the surgical kit in order to progress the story. Now there's like a reason for why the Rat King didn't immediately attack in the show.
He didn't immediately attack because he was behind that door and trapped behind it. No?
Yeah, well, I'm saying the turning the power on, he got out, and I feel like he would have immediately gone to find Abby, but obviously like we had to get Abby through to get the
Maybe he did,
surgical
but he
kit.
thought she was that
Maybe,
way.
yeah.
Did you see the line of blood leading towards the ambulance?
He's just got a poor sense of direction.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, that's true. I don't know. We'll see.
But I mean, I like that idea as like, because the other thing like with the Rat King is like, it's obviously also like symbolic for like what she built Joel up to be in her mind, and then the Super Stalker fight that breaks off from it is foreshadowing the Ellie fight, kind of.
Yeah.
Whether they'll do something like that, but foreshadow, it'll be different, because I imagine the Abby Ellie confrontation will be different because of the different physicality of it. So if the Stalker that breaks off, or if there's like, say there's multiple Stalkers that break off, I don't know whether like they'll do something to like parallel with the fights in the theater.
I wonder if they won't do like because I feel like that the Stalker breaking off is very symbolic in game, but it also is like just another challenge as a player. I wonder if they're gonna kind of wrap that same concept all up in like one being of like the Rat King is as stealthy as a stalker, but is this like big monster at the same time that Abby built Joel up into her head to be. Because we've seen bits and pieces of Ellie being stealthy, but it's just, you just can't highlight it in the same way that you can when you're playing a game as that person, and you have to rely on like your stealth abilities for so long.
The only reason
I
that
don't know.
Ellie has been stealthy so far is because Dina's there to kind of hold her back, and Dina commented on that during
Yeah,
the stalker section.
that's true.
So once Ellie's kind of out on her own, that'll be interesting to see how she handles things on her own, because Dina's the one that's doing the listen mode and
Yeah, I mean,
clever about it.
but bear in mind as well, like in the thing is a fight, Ellie isn't stealthy. It's Abby's got to be stealthy. You've got to sneak around. Ellie's like,
Mhm.
you know, shouting everywhere, going, "You're gonna fucking die!" and like cocking shotgun and throwing Molotov cocktails and planting shrap
Uh-huh.
mines and all this sort of stuff.
Which you can do when you've got incredible dodge abilities.
Yeah,
Which she does, because you throw anything at her, she just dodges out the way.
That pisses me off so bad.
Yeah.
Just playing that. I don't know. I feel like the last time I played it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to be more on the offensive this time, and I'm gonna like try to stun her with a bottle. And then there was like so many times where she just dodges it, and I'm like, fuck,
Yeah.
that's not fair.
Do we think we're going to see that fight this season? There's been
No.
some comment online about no, I don't think
No,
so either. But
I
like,
don't
I've
think
seen people
so.
We're gonna-
comment online that it might be this season.
yeah, I think we're going to see it next season. I'm hoping it's not as truncated as the David fight was last season, but I don't think it
Yeah.
will be, given that like they kind of lean more into the action, and it would be anticlimactic to like have them just kind of like end it very quickly. So I think I'm hoping we'll get like better drawn out, possibly even its own episode. Just like, you know, say Ellie's got a shotgun or something, and like Abby's like hiding in fear of her life, trying to like get round her and stuff.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I don't see them doing a whole episode for one encounter, purely because like
Well, I was thinking in terms of like
covered
the
the-
aftermath and like going
Yeah.
home afterwards as like kind of the conclusion to the episode kind of thing. Because
Yeah.
if they have like we return to that cliffhanger, assuming the cliffhanger is the same at the end of season 2, we return to that cliffhanger the episode before, and then the episode after fight, and that's like, I don't know, or 15 minutes maybe.
I'm imagining if we get a season 3 and it's 7 episodes again, or a generous 8 episodes, the first half of the season would be all of like Abby's flashback stuff, and then her 3 days in Seattle, and then like this is assuming that they're gonna complete the story in 3 seasons. Like midpoint would be that theater altercation to going home,
Yeah.
and then I imagine that I can't imagine that they're gonna focus that long on their home life in their like little farm. So I can imagine that being an episode, and then at the
Yeah.
end of the episode, Ellie decides to go back out to find, and then the last 3 episodes are like Santa Barbara stuff. This is like thinking way ahead, but
I'm not looking forward to the Santa Barbara stuff.
I mean, I am, because I want to see if they do like chained up infected.
yeah,
That'd be fun.
I want them to bring Logic back to be one of the guy that gets.
I just know
It-
I'm going to spend so much time shouting, "What the fuck are you doing, Ellie? You should be at home with Dina and the baby." Like, this is what I will get so annoyed, because when Phil plays it, I do exactly that. I also felt that it should have ended right where we see them being happy. Like,
You were
that would be an
talking though about
extended long cutscene. They're happy. It's fine. Tommy's not coming. No one's going to tell her to go off. They're not.
Nothing bad.
it's gonna
Nothing
keep
bad
all
ever
her
happens in the
fingers.
franchise of The Last of Us, of course.
Like,
somebody. I
Everyone-
think Phil was talking about how when Ellie's being happy, it's a mask on, mask off. Ellie's life on the farm with Dina is a huge mask.
Yeah.
no, she's
Eh,
happy.
She's not.
No, she's happy.
There's
Steve,
a happy bouncing little sheep that
Yeah.
she can have a cuddle with, but a spade falls and she has a flashback. She's not happy. She's in a bad.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have CPTSD. I'm also happy. These two things can coexist.
Yeah. I think I was going to say, Steve, I think D is like begging to like be like you to enable the denial.
Like, honestly, cut me some slack here. Honestly, but that being said, the first time Phil played it, when they got to the farm bit, I was like, oh, an extended cutscene just to finish it off because it's been so traumatic. But no, they have to have a whole other. And I was like, what are you doing? You should have ended it there. It should have been ended there. We shouldn't have had Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara should have been The Last of Us 3. Right? If we have to have anything, Santa Barbara should, and I feel vindicated that we're now going to have 3 seasons because I said it should have been 3 in the first place. I will get annoyed. I will shout at the telly, and I will try not to because I know Phil's actually paying attention and doesn't just want to hear me go off. But it's not going to work. I promise you this now. It won't work, babe.
I was yelling at Ellie this episode in the forest. I was like, Ellie, go prone. Ellie, you need to go prone right now. Behind the bushes.
Honestly, when
That
they were
was
like,
one
did
thing.
you hear something? I said, yes, some weird woman like jumping up and down.
That would have been a perfect opportunity for her to like throw a bottle. I'm just saying.
I felt a bit disappointed during the forest, and this is something that show watchers will not get at all, and it's like the stupidest nitpick from a game player. I wish that we had seen Ellie crouching, but instead of going under the tree or wherever she went into the tree, I wish that we'd had her like basically there with the machete and like
Oh,
you know the poster
like
I'm
the
talking
picture.
about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
That would have been a really cool wee nod. And if they'd given up, if they just like if they move forward another 10 meters, they'll find her. But just have them there and then they turn around and go.
I was surprised
Um,
nobody was running, jumping down and jumping down. That bloody phone dive.
I was like, Ellie, go prone. I was like, okay, first you have to do is you press L1 and then you go forward and then you
You do prone diving.
you prone dive. That's what you got to do, Ellie.
Yeah, they won't know you're there then. They won't
Show
able
would be
to see you.
realistic. if they
But
did that.
again, she was out that forest fast that like no kill speed run. Vindicated, it's canon.
Oh, my
funny.
days.
They did that for for the speedrunners.
I do that. So that's a change up that I quite like in a way. Because obviously in the game, a lot of people complain about the fact that Ellie kills so many people and that kind of takes away from the story of the game, which is like the cycle of violence. And I suppose the show kind of canonizes that she really only kills Abby's pals.
Mhm.
And that random guy in the TV station. And her kill count might go up, like could go way up in the Seattle Day 3. But having her kill count down, but mixing that with the fact that she was so brutal with Nora. And I know she's brutal with Nora in the game, but allowing us to see it and allowing us to make like actually sharing that experience. It does the same job as killing so many people without
Yeah.
turning her into a complete monster.
Yeah.
Mm. Plus, it's again, that's a gameplay choice, and like obviously, gamers have that thing. We need to like, we need something to kill and something to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which, as we know, I very much enjoy doing.
I was gonna say, and some of us like specifically do challenges where it's like kill every single enemy.
Hell yeah.
You're the real monster here.
Hey. Yeah.
No, really, really good episode. I'm hopeful for the finale. I think the finale is going to pack a punch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they do the flashbacks. And then, but yeah, I think the main thing I'm looking forward to is the seeing where we end up and how we end up there.
Yeah.
I want to see the aquarium, which I have faith in them that they're going to keep it faithful to what it looks like. Because listening to the HBO podcast, they were like Neil was talking about how like amazed that for the theater that they literally replicated the carpet. Like that's how detail oriented they were about the sets was that the carpet in the theater was the exact same carpet that they had put in the game. I'm like, cool.
Do you
They
think
can-
they've built a massive whale? That'd be cool.
Well, I don't think I mean, I guess we don't really see that part until Abby's days, right? Because we just see the outside and then we see the.
Unless they deliberately stay away from it with camera angles, but I think if there's like
Oh, we
any
do see it.
shot-
You're right. I forgot that is where that happens. I don't know. Hopefully.
Whatever happens, I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But yeah, we have been talking for a long time, which is always good. There's always so much to talk about, and like I think like we could go on forever probably. But in the spirit of, you know, asking people to watch a 12-hour podcast might be a bit much. I think 2 hours is probably a good place to kind of wrap things up. So before we go, any final thoughts either on what we've seen already or what we want to see in the future, or just other things you may have forgotten to mention so far?
I don't think so. Again, because I've only just finished it. I'm sure there's a lot that there is to talk about, but I don't know what you guys have already spoken about either. So I trust that you've covered everything off. Just a really good episode. Really good to see Murder Ellie. Finally, I've been wanting that side of Ellie for a long time, and I feel like finally got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything from you, D?
They're pretty much same. My favourite bit has got to be the Nora murder, so I'm looking forward to more murder, Ellie.
Brooke?
I'm really excited to cry next week. And there's so many lines of dialogue and like little things from the museum specifically that I hope they keep in. And we saw the hat. We saw the hat in Ellie's room. So I just hope that they keep that bit because
Did we?
I love it.
Oh, I need to go and check that out because I totally missed it.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was episode. It might have been episode 3 when Ellie went into the house and went in through Joel's or her old room. I'm pretty sure that's when you see it.
Great, I'm gonna go and check that.
Yeah,
that's a nice wee nod. But yeah, I don't think next week's going to be all fun and light. It will start off nice, but that'll be the descent of their relationship. It'll start off with "Hey kiddo," and it'll end with "Fuck off, Joel."
Yeah.
It could even end with Abby. We could see like Abby again, killing him, and like that being like the very final thing that she sees. I could imagine that.
Mm.
Well, that's what we're here for the trauma that bleeds through and like takes away all the moments of joy.
Yay, more trauma.
Love it.
Yeah, no, from my point of view, I think probably covered everything I can think of at the moment. There's probably going to be loads more. Like I'm kind of mentally starting to write in my head an overview of like the series as a whole and kind of like piecing it all together and like what it means as like a single kind of piece of media like all together once we've got all 7 episodes, because there's lots of stuff I'm sure will tie together more thematically once we've like seen the lot.
I do feel like this season is really, I think it suffers for being a weekly show. I think it'll be much easier to follow and digest for people who don't know the game to follow if it's just something you're binging. Like 7 episodes, start to finish, watch it over a couple of nights. I think will be a lot easier, a lot better. I think that the whole weekly.
You think that'd be easier for non-game players?
Yeah.
See,
I covered that because I found I just recently rewatched Lost for the first time since Lost came out, And I remember back then I was theorizing about like, oh, where could it go? And sometimes your theories are kind of half correct, which is cool, but and you'd always the Lost was like the first show that I remember that there was like so much online discussion about. And it led to a lot of disappointment and a lot of people just being so disappointed in or just plain misunderstanding the ending. When I rewatched it just in the last few months, it's all there. All the information that you need is there, and it's such a well constructed show. I absolutely loved it, and I followed it so much easier binging it night after night. And I think that Last of Us is going to be a
I was
similar
specifically
thing.
thinking that like it'd be better as a bingeable to binge the whole thing as a game player, because then you wouldn't be like each episode, oh well, they didn't include X, Y, or Z, and then it's in the next episode a week later. And
Yeah,
that sort of stuff, because I think there's been a lot of that. I think like in kind of
yeah, I don't think maybe it's for different reasons. I think it will be better for game players and it'll be better for show only watchers. I just think week on week there's so much to discuss and so much to think about and theorize about where it could possibly go that people are maybe getting their expectations up too high during that week, and maybe people are feeling let down at the end.
yeah. I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that. Yeah, but yeah, I do think it'll be interesting to see how the experience compares as like a single binge watch compared to like week on week episodes.
Yeah.
And I was saying the same with like season 2 and season 3 once we got them together without a 2-year wait. How that'll compare. Obviously, that's much further down the line. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. But until then, obviously, all we can do is week to week talk about it, and obviously that gets like from my point of view, like that's more an excuse to put out more content. So I'm not going to complain.
Absolutely.
But
I've got to go and do my Welsh lesson.
I think, yeah, for now, obviously, we'll have more to discuss next week and the week after. Until then, just thanks to everyone who's been watching along with us. And it's always fun, I think, to have these conversations. And as we said before, to have conversations that are like rooted in kind of caring about this and enjoying it and thinking about different approaches to it rather than kind of the usual internet discourse of basically yelling at each other that everyone's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's all good. But hopefully people have enjoyed this and enjoyed kind of the perspectives and what we talked about. And we'll continue to enjoy it next week and the week after. Until then, thank you to everyone for watching. And thank you, as always, you guys, for coming along and chatting and making these nearly 2.5 hours just absolutely fly by as we talk about Last of Us. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that's just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.